In League of Legends, there are a massive amount of items. This video goes over all the tank items and when you should consider buying them. Your mythic choices for tanks are Heartsteel, Iceborne Gauntlet, Radiant Virtue, and Jak'Shows, all of which grants health and ability haste. Heartsteel also grants health regen, and has a unique passive where after being in combat for 3 seconds, your next attack against a champion deals additional damage, as well as granting permanent health, with a mythic passive granting more health and size. You should consider this if you want to be fighting often and stacking infinite health. Iceborne Gauntlet also grants a large amount of armor, and has a passive where after using an ability, your next attack deals additional damage and slows in a circle around the target, with the mythic passive granting health, tenacity, and slow resist. This should be considered on champions that want to fight often and need the utility. Radiant Virtue also grants additional armor and magic resist, and has a passive where upon using your ultimate you gain maximum health and heal all nearby allies, with a mythic passive granting additional health. Consider this if you want to be tanky while supporting your team. Jak'Show also grants additional armor and magic resist, and has a passive where you gain additional armor and magic resist in combat, and when fully stacked you deal damage in an area around you which also heals you, with a mythic passive granting armor and magic resist. You should consider this if you want to be right in the middle of every team fight. Your choices for armor are Deadman's, Frozen Heart, Randuin's, Sunfire, and Thornmail. All of these provide health and armor, except Frozen Heart, which grants mana instead of health. Deadman's also grants movement speed, and allows you to build up an attack which deals additional damage and slows. Consider this if you want the additional mobility. Frozen Heart also grants ability haste. It has a passive where you take less basic attack damage, and also slows nearby enemies' attack speed. Consider this against attack speed heavy teams. Randuin's Omen has an active which slows nearby enemies in a circle around you, and it has passives which reduce basic attack damage taken and critical strike damage taken. Consider this item against critical strike heavy teams. Sunfire's has a passive where upon taking or dealing damage, you start dealing damage in an area around you. Consider this if you want even more damage which scales with maximum health. And Thornmail has a passive where upon being attacked, you deal damage back to the attacker and apply grievous wounds. Consider this if you want to reduce your enemy's healing. For magic resist items, you have Abyssal Mask, Force of Nature, Spirit of Visage, and Chemtank, all of which grants health and magic resist. Abyssal Mask also grants ability haste and mana. It has a passive where you restore mana when taking damage and heal when spending mana, and a second passive where you reduce the magic resist of nearby enemies while gaining magic resist yourself. Consider this if you need additional mana and want to be dealing more damage. Force of Nature also grants additional movement speed. It has a passive where you gain stacks upon taking damage, and at 6 stacks you gain even more movement speed and reduce all incoming magic damage. Consider this if you want the additional mobility. Spirit of Visage also grants ability haste and health regen, and has a passive which increases all heals, shields, and health regen. Consider this on champions that like healing and shielding. Chemtank also grants ability haste, and has an active where you gain a large amount of movement speed and ghosting while facing a turret or champion, and after a short time you slow everything around you. Consider this on engage heavy champions. Other tank items include Anathema's Chains, Fimbulwinter, Gargoyles, and Warmogs. Anathema's Chains grants health and ability haste. It has an active where you can mark an enemy champion as your nemesis. This will build up stacks until fully in effect. Your nemesis has reduced tenacity when nearby you, and you take reduced damage from them. This can be good if the opposing team has one massive threat. Fimbulwinter grants health, mana, and ability haste, and has a passive where you gain even more health scaling with mana, and upon CCing an enemy you're granted a shield. Consider this on mana-hungry tanks. Gargoyles grants armor, magic resist, and ability haste. It has a passive where you gain even more armor and magic resist when taking damage, and an active that grants you a massive shield. Warmogs grants health, health regen, and ability haste, and has a passive while when out of combat you quickly restore to full health if you have 1100 bonus health.